anymore around adoption of. I now think it's more a reluctance of who to choose to go with. So I think the value is there, and I think that's well articulated. Everybody now can see, geez, this is a real game changer, and it's I want to change, I want to adopt, I want these benefits.
Welcome to the Trend Detection Podcast, powered by Siemens. And now your host, Niall Sullivan.
Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of the Trend Detection Podcast. Today, I'm once again joined by my very esteemed colleague, Richard Ella, all the way in Australia. He's been on the podcast many times. And he keeps getting invited back, so we talk about such interesting stuff. And today is no different. We're talking about data. And this, let's say, issue where about having too much data and not enough action. So you're sitting on piles and piles and piles of data, but not actually getting the insights from it that it deserves, really, I guess. But I'm going to sort of hand over to Richard to get us started. I think we all know who Richard is by now. Maybe one sentence of who you are, Richard, for newcomers, and then maybe you could just give a bit of background on the topics. I know you brought this to the table. So over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Niall. Again, just thank you for doing these podcasts. I think they are absolutely brilliant. It's really feeding into how we change learning. You know, we've become a micro learning kind of community. It's the only way we can stay relevant, and you really are feeding into this micro learning where you can listen to a podcast on the tube on your way to work, or you have this gap where you just incrementally improve, and this really feeds into that. And thank you for the opportunity. Today's topic is something that I've been very interested in throughout my career, and even on a personal note. So I know we talk about Senseye and we talk about the value that what Senseye can actually do with your data. But before that, what we are seeing are quite prevalent in when we talk about digitalization or we talk about a digital adoption is how do you get started? And this is not a customer, this is not an industry, this is really comes down to personal beliefs. And how do you actually change? And what we're going to talk about today is basically too much data and not enough action. And one of the phrases that I absolutely love, and I picked it up very early on in my career when I bought my first Fitbit to track my steps, was paralysis in analysis. And I was like, that's a bit of a geeky word, and what does it actually mean? And what it actually meant at the time for me was because I had this Fitbit and it was technology and it was counting my steps and my sleep, and I was studying, I was trying to get fitter, and I'm always trying to look at being healthier. And being a data guy, absolutely love the data. But what actually happens is you get into a trap where the more information you get, the more educated you get, the more stuck you get. It's only until somebody comes along and actually breaks that thinking and breaks that cycle of analysis to say, listen, what are you actually trying to achieve here? Are you, be that predictive maintenance or be that better health? And so there's this common phenomenon where we call it paralysis in analysis. And, coming back to the UK, it even goes back as far as Winston Churchill. I think he had a quote that was, perfection is actually better spelled paralysis. And what that actually means is that we are, to get started, we've got a lot of data, we've got a lot of options, and we get stuck there. And so, and Senseye is in the predictive maintenance space is the most powerful tool I've seen break that cycle of traditional condition monitoring to, hey, let's what are you actually trying to achieve here, on your return on investment? Are you looking at improving your scheduled maintenance or your downtime? All of those things that everybody is trying to do with the traditional condition monitoring, and it requires a lot of analysis and it requires a lot of effort. And so now Senseye comes along and says, listen, we can achieve the same thing, but in a better way, in a smarter way. And so the first part of this paralysis in analysis is understanding that our customers are stuck in their data, and um, it's with all the good intentions in the world. There's a reason why they got the data is because they wanted to use the data, but with traditional condition monitorings and traditional tools, it got stuck in the event rules or the rules-based world. And so that's really what we wanted to talk about today is how do we break that cycle of I've got all this information, but how do I get started? Who do I choose? Why do I choose them? And getting the tap on the shoulder and say, listen, let's rethink this a little bit and lay a roadmap of how to get started. Niall?
Yeah, so I guess first of all, I think that's the first time Winston Churchill's been quoted on the podcast. Hopefully not the last, but nice quote in there. But I guess the first point to make is you mentioned that it's not like a recent phenomenon. So I guess people would presume with technology and things like that, we're talking about data paralysis now, but obviously data collection's been a thing for much longer, right? It's been going on for many years.
Yeah, it certainly. And with this whole shift of generative AI, it's breaking the way that we interact with that data. All right. So if we look at what Senseye has adopted with the generative AI into traditional machine learning AI, it's a completely new experience. You don't have your traditional fault code spitting out something that you've got to go read the manual, and it's now conversational like. And really hats off to Senseye for leading the way on this. There's a lot of generative AI talk about how we wrap this into products, and there are a lot of products that wrap generative AI around it, but not many solutions that embed it in its offering to not just be a chatbot, not just be something that is just an extension of ChatGPT. It's actually a built-in language learning model so that you really derive insights into your data, and you're having that conversation, which, look, for me, is just a breath of fresh air, because that's what customers want. That we want to move beyond just spending time reading manuals and those kind of things. We just want to get as close to the diagnostic as soon as possible. So this data problem is not new. I think people, you can call it overwhelming. People have it all the time, but in the industrial world, this is very prevalent, because a lot of sites are coming on board now, and connectivity is a prerequisite. So they've got all of this data without any effort, because of edge capability, IoT integration. All of these things are coming kind of ready connected, and how do you actually convert that is important.
Yeah, and I guess that what I was thinking first of all is, how do, if we talk about the industrial setting, how do organisations end up with too much data? How does that happen? I guess, and I guess from my point of view, I've been at events and spoken to people, and this was a few years ago now, but when they were talking about, oh yeah, we've gathered all this data, but we have no idea what to do with it now. And I guess that's part of what we're talking about today. But do you know how people sort of got into that situation to start with, of sitting on mounds of data?
Yeah, look, whenever a project goes to work or a project gets deployed, there are minimum requirements that get set out for communications. And this is now becoming, standard. So if I put in a drive or a flow meter or some kind of device, that data is now becoming standard. So, and usually during the project onboarding, that information gets declared with all the best intention in the world. Every customer thinks that when they onboard, they'll bring this in, it'll go into this magic box, and it's just going to tell them everything. And um, and traditionally, it required data scientists, it required subject matter experts, it required coders, and all of them to study the application and then derive value out of that. And so the reason why our customers are experiencing this is because that's not scalable. You just can't deploy these people just to go and do individual things. You need to change the way that you look at your data. And so when we look at mine sites, this is massive. So we've got lots of data. We're commissioning new equipment all of the every day. And all of this information is just going into the SCADA usually, and then usually kind of sits in a historian. And then unless something goes wrong and they do a lessons learned or a 5 whys or some kind of investigation, that data never gets used. And so, and this is becoming more and more prevalent. And so it's not because customers are doing anything wrong. This is not a failing of the industry. I think it's more of a failure to leverage that data properly. And up until AI, it was really hard to be able to scale that. So you can go to many different sites, and you can quickly see if there is a data science team or there's a reliability team. They are usually quite energized. They know their data. And you will see wins at that site because they're engaged. They basically, but that's again not scalable and is very ad hoc. So what you want to do is take those pockets of energy and focus and really leverage that across many sites so that you can actually gain those benefits rather than it just being something that an engineering team did on one site and they're looking at scaling it, but they need to study it. And so here, this data issue is massive and it's getting bigger. And we need to maybe communicate better to our customers as to why traditional tools get stuck and they're good for traditional condition monitoring, and what the benefits are of machine learning and generative AI combined. It's kind of a real game changer and can break that cycle for your data.
And I guess when we talk about data as well, so with Senseye as an example, it's not just about one plant or one production line; it's across multiple sites as well. And obviously, if you add in multiple sites, that's more data and stacking up. I mean, so if we think about the data paralysis issue across the enterprise, how does that? What's your sort of thoughts on that, Richard? How does that change what we're talking about here?
So let's just take, for example, we've got 5 sites, and we've got exactly the same pump across 5 sites. Those 5 sites don't communicate with each other. They are very siloed in traditional, and even across on each site, you might have 3 to 4 shifts. So even on one site, you've got 3 to 4 shifts where they don't get the full communication with each other. So you get a lot of duplication in effort. And what actually happens is, let's say, they've got one piece of machinery that's known to for the pump to get blocked if they don't clean the filter. Let's just say that is a known issue. All right, that in isolation will become a known issue at that one site. All right, and yes, they can go put service bulletins in place and do something for that one site. But let's say a brand new site comes with the same piece of equipment. For that next site to go through that same pain is an absolute waste of time, but happens all the time. All right, is because each site needs to learn their machinery. They need to learn the idiosyncrasies, that word, of the machine. And so what you actually need to do is what Senseye does is it's actually taking the what's happening with an existing site. So when a new site comes on board, it's taken those learnings across with it, so that if that happens, it straight away tells you, listen, we've had 10 cases like this exactly, and it was because of this filter issue. And straight away, the benefits are gained. But this happens all the time. So, and I'm just talking about one application. So, on a given mine site, or be it in any application, we can have, up to 300, maybe 400 motors, all with their own unique characters. And so we need to break that traditional way of, this is a new site, we will learn what this machine does and adapt and accord. We don't need to do that anymore. We can hit the ground running within existing data. So again, how do you break this paralysis in data is because what every site will do on its own, they will study it, and then they will go and get stuck in this paralysis in analysis, and then they'll go, all right, let's go throw some more sensors in it, let's get some more data. We still don't know exactly what the problem is. Let's call the OEM and let's maybe get a contractor in to maybe give us a third party. And so you can see how this really snowballs into of no value. You might eventually get on top of the issue for that site, but where did all that pain get gained? And that's what we really want to lever is starting with with fresher data and a better way of communicating with your machinery.
Yeah, so because I know you sort of shared some sort of bullet points before the call, just to outline what we were going to talk about. And you have this phrase, the overthinking trap, and that's exactly what you're describing there, right? This, too much data, trying to dig into it and understand every last part of it. But I guess that's the key to it all, really, isn't it? It's spending too much time on the data and not putting it into action.
Yeah, that's right. We are all very, very busy, but we've only got a certain capacity. And this is what Senseye brings to the predictive maintenance space. It improves your capacity because you're not focusing on all of the different things that are going on in your plant. You now have something to do that for you, and now you are focusing on the result. So you don't have to worry about trying to analyze everything and trying to derive things. You now, okay, it takes a while for you to convert your trust over to Senseye. This is a natural resistance that people will have. I see it every day. I was exactly the same. So when it comes to this a different way of doing things, this is what actually causes this resistance is, what is a program going to tell me that I don't already know? All right. And so only when you actually interact with Senseye and you actually see it's pulling things out that one you already knew, but also things that you might not have known. And so once you have this trust in the detection, and it becomes an intuitive thing. That's why we call it an attention index, is because what Sensei is all about is grabbing your attention and providing it and focusing it in a certain area. And so what it allows you to do is get out of this paralysis in analysis and focus on results and value, and just let Sensei run in the background, and basically do a lot of the things that you were trying to do ad hoc and manually before.
And of course, there's a lot to consider on the customer side. But if we sort of flip it around and think about maybe from our point of view, from a Siemens perspective, or just vendors in general, how can sort of vendors help customers sort of overcome this sort of overthinking or falling into this trap of like overanalyzing data themselves?
Yeah, there's a couple of parts to it. So, when it comes to value add, I've been a service engineer for a long time, 30 years. And if a customer questions what value we are providing, or if there's any question around the value, I will purely bring it down to a simple line that if a customer asks, why should I engage you or Siemens or a vendor? And my simple answer to that is because I want to call you before you call me. I want to bring something to your attention before you bring it to me. If that is the relationship, I'm of value to you, and it doesn't matter what tools I use. All right, but this is one of the reasons why I'm involved with Senseye, is because it's one of the strongest tools that we have to be able to do that. Because our customers, they basically want to be contacted prior to a failure. And the last thing that they want to do is contact a vendor or contact Siemens, tell them, listen, something's failed, and then go on to explain everything about it. That's so what Sensei enables a vendor to do to their customer, or whatever the relationship is, it allows you to strengthen your relationship with a customer to say, listen, let me call you before you call me. And as we move into this everything as a service, which I absolutely love, where everything's becoming subscription based, I can really see this being the future. Honestly, if I had a new plant, or if I had a plant and I didn't have a digital transformation team, or I didn't have a digital champion, but I wanted to transform, I would go to Siemens and say, listen, I need this transformation. I don't have these capabilities in-house. Can you provide that as a service? And this is what Siemens does. So we offer the product so you can empower yourself, and Sensei will go along the journey with you, because it is software as a service, and we are constantly engaged with a customer to make sure that they're getting value. But the biggest thing when it comes to this vendor customer relationship, or what does Sensei bring to the table, is this ability to speak to a customer before they speak to you. Because if you have that relationship, it's a win-win. They are paying for value, you're providing value, and Sensei is the tool to achieve that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
slightly biased, but 100% agree, of course. But, but no, absolutely. So I think we've got a couple of questions left. One which is sort of our usual when we tie things together and give our listeners some takeaways to sort of leave with. But before we do that, I just wanted to touch on sort of adoption of tech, because we know customers have a lot of data, and we've talked about sort of overthinking and overanalyzing, and what do we do with it and stuff. But we know AI, Gen AI is a huge topic, and if you're not aware of it, you must be living under a rock somewhere, I guess. So, is there a reason why I don't know if there is a reluctance. Is there a reluctance to adopt this new technology? Is there some reticence there? And if there is, why might that be? And obviously, it's a very broad statement because not everyone's. There's a lot of people doing great things with AI tools, but where there is a reluctance, can you put your finger on why that might be? Knowing they've got all this data that AI can really draw the value from.
Yeah, it's amazing actually how fast things change. I remember one of our first podcasts was around adoption, and that conversation will be completely different to how I feel today, because I don't feel there's a reluctance anymore around adoption of. I now think it's more a reluctance of who to choose to go with. So I think the value is there, and I think that's well articulated. Everybody now can see, geez, this is a real game changer, and it's I want to change, I want to adopt, I want these benefits. But the reluctance now is, who do I go with, and why do I go with them? And so, again, this is part of that paralysis in analysis. You've now made a decision. I want to eat better, or I want better maintenance. Okay, but now you've got to choose an action. So I feel this is how you break the cycle. So, firstly, if anybody is listening to this, what I would suggest you do is, there's a couple of key things that you want to know when adopting any technology. So, but firstly, do your homework on your top three. Choose whatever your application is, but go do your homework on the top three, and base that on experience. Base that on use cases demonstrated, because the only thing that's going to break the cycle for you is if you visually see something that was done in the past that is being done now that you need. All right. And so, whoever you choose, make sure that they can demonstrate that this has been done, and basically, and once we did it, be able to have a 15-minute conversation as to how you achieve that without getting lost. That's the important component to adopting new technologies. You know what you need to do. Okay, you talk about how it's done. You usually know the why, but choose somebody that is able to demonstrate use cases, is able to articulate to you quite clearly without trying to pull the wool over your eyes as to how it achieves that, and then do a bit of a deep dive into their experience in this deployment. So whenever you are adopting a new technology, or you're changing the way you doing something, you need a roadmap. So ask that company, whoever and whatever technology you are going with, what is your roadmap? What have you previously identified as issues? What are your lessons learned? Why should I go with you to make sure that I'm not at the bleeding edge of technology? All right. I want somebody to show me that you have a clear plan. This is the lessons that you learned, and also possibly challenge you on your intention. I could own a factory, and I say, listen, I want to reduce my downtime by 50%, and I want it by next week, and I've got a budget of $10,000. And so you need somebody to challenge you and say, look, that's not going to happen because of things like cultural adoption. We understand that your maintenance team are used to fixing broken things and being reactive. That's their mindset. That's how they have worked up until now. And so to change the way that people do things takes a little bit of time. So that's maybe what I would just suggest is when we talk about this reluctance, I don't think there's any more reluctance on adopting technology. It's choosing who to go with. And look, I see this all the time too, is a customer will ask you, well, why should I go with you and not with them? And you should also be able to articulate that, okay? Because every customer is different and every solution is different. And there are, you know, there's no one product that fits every customer. But what you want to do is choose something that you can start small on, demonstrate wins on very, very quickly, so that because the wins are what breed success and drive the next thing, and you can scale up, and it's not restricted by things like connectivity and OEM restrictions. So a couple of things there around the reluctance, but I think just choosing who to start with is what we need to do better at this stage. And I think Senseye and now this kind of platform is brilliant because customers want these bite-sized information. They don't want the PowerPoint presentations, and they literally want to see how it's done because they know their why. And yeah, just getting that started and articulated is the important part.
Oh, excellent! And I think you probably summarised really well. Well, you have summarised really well and sort of close out the episode. But maybe if we circle back quickly to to the original topic, which is around too much data. So, what would you say are 3 punchy takeaways for people to think about when it comes to the topic of data and taking action with it?
Yeah. Look, ask for help. As I said, people get stuck in their own world. Companies get stuck in their own world. Sometimes it's better to just ask for help. Let somebody else come in and look at it from a bird's eye point of view. And with Senseye, we do this all the time, where we come in and we give you a bird's eye point of view, where we talk about and understand what your problems are. But most importantly, we give you a return on investment time. And then that's the first little jog that you can get to break the cycle. So the first thing is ask for help. And then the second thing is and make sure that depending at which level you are at. So we've got CEOs, we've got shift supervisors. Everybody's got a different level and a different perspective, and it's very important that that you engage your team at the different layers to make the change that you see. All right, I know that this can be hard because usually when it comes to Senseye, the shop floor and the operators and the reliability engineers, they clearly see the value. They can quickly say, yeah, let's go ahead with this. But they aren't the decision makers. They aren't the budget makers. And it's very important that that you go internal, go speak to your manager and say, listen, we want to do this better. All right, because the higher the engagement within your organization, the better results that you're going to get. So, and Siemens are there to also help you with that, and we can kind of articulate those benefits at the different levels. That's kind of what we do. So, ask for help, but go internally within your organization and see what you can actually do there. Get the internal buy-in. Here in Australia, this is a culture that's very much encouraged in all organizations is process improvement, product improvement, and there's lots of rewards around this. So this is something that you should be encouraged. Go speak to your manager. Go speak to your supervisor. We want to do something different because and so that internal change. And then maybe, I know this is not punchy, but ask for help, derive it inside. And then maybe the third thing that I would just say is start small. Don't try and tackle the entire plant. Start with one line. Start with a known problem, and start small. And soon as you do that, you actually scaling up is very, very easy within Senseye. So those are my three kind of takeaways. There is ask for support, reach out to OEMs, compare them, make sure they can articulate the benefits to you. Try and do something internal before reaching out, and then also go and see what else we can do there. Yeah.
Excellent, really great takeaways as well. And it is difficult to be punchy with such a there's a lot to talk about with this topic, isn't it? So maybe I was a bit unfair with that request, but no, really great summary there, Richard. But yeah, for today, we've covered everything. I think it was a really good episode once again. Thank you for returning, Richard, and sharing your insights once again. It's great to have you on.
Thank you very much, Niall, and looking forward to a lot of your others. I've been keeping a close eye on them, and I heard you actually recently caught up with Keith Ritchie here in Australia. We've got a big initiative around Beyond 1%, which is very much sustainability. I think you recently caught up with him.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, literally yesterday as well. So,
wow.
So that episode will be coming soon, and a really fascinating sort of insight, and lots of great work with that initiative. But I won't spoil the episode too much. But yeah, it was really interesting talking to Keith from my side. But for today, thank you again, Richard, and thank you everyone for joining and listening. And we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you very much.
Please like and subscribe on all major podcast channels, and find out more about Senseye Predictive Maintenance at Siemens.com.